Reggie could do nothing but scramble to dodge, completely stripped of the initiative. Then he noticed something about Tira's expression that felt strangely familiar. Why does she have the exact same look in her eyes as him? He turned and looked directly at Derek. Tira could never have come up with this style of fighting on her own. He planned all of this. Meanwhile, Tira used the cover beneath the platform to her advantage. Whenever Reggie began drawing on his mana to launch an attack, she could sense the faint ripple of his mana and pinpoint his position, then strike. This can't go on. I need to figure something out. Then his eyes landed on a tall flagpole standing on the platform. He immediately climbed up to the top. Tira suddenly realized she could no longer sense Reggie's mana at all. But while Reggie had escaped her detection, he was in no position to cast magic from up there, so he channeled his mana into the base of the flagpole and struck it. The massive structure came crashing down and demolished the entire platform. Now you have nowhere to hide. Victory is mine. But Reg never anticipated that Tira would close the distance and drive a flying kick straight into his chest. And before he could recover, she scooped up a handful of dirt from the ground and flung it into his face. But Tira didn't press the advantage. She turned and ran. Her mana must be exhausted. Did she really think these little tricks were enough to beat him? Tira's gaze is as resolute as ever. Even with a wound on her forehead, she doesn't care. She wipes away the blood with a casual hand, just enough to keep her vision clear. Think of magic as a painting, and your mana as the brush and paint that bring it to life. Try casting the way you know best, like painting, and you'll draw out true magic. Tira channels her mana exactly the way I described, her fingertips gliding gently through the air, as if tracing a painting, and moments later, a mana sword materializes beside her. Look, Tira just cast a 1-star spell. Reggie feels the pressure mount. After all, he himself is only a 1-star mage. Still, the advantage is mine. Even at the same 1-star level, her control and raw power can't match mine. If I land the first hit, this duel is over. The two of them unleash their spells almost simultaneously. A thunderous boom splits the air, and the Duchess on the viewing platform lets out a startled cry. When the dust clears, she sees that one fighter's magic artifact has been activated. Regis stares at the ice-type mana sword hovering inches from his face, his heart pounding one step closer, and he would have been the one to lose. Tira, meanwhile, stands frozen, blank-faced, unmoving. Then she can't hold it in any longer, and bursts into tears. She had pushed herself to the limit, thrown away every shred of noble dignity, fought with everything she had and still lost. I feel a pang of disappointment too, but this isn't Tira's fault. She only awakened her mana recently, and the fact that she fought this far is already more than I could have asked for. Up in the viewing stands, the Duke and the others are visibly shaken. The Duchess in particular is furious. She finds Tira's fighting style a disgrace to noble conduct, and wastes no time laying the blame on me, insisting I have corrupted her daughter. The Duke says nothing. He watches his daughter on the dueling stage, and his mind drifts back to his own youth. Back then, a great figure once told him he had eyes full of ambition. Now, looking at his daughter, the Duke notices even through her tears, her eyes are sharper than they have ever been. A crowd of maids rushes over, eager to tend to her wounds, but Tira pays her injuries no mind, and walks straight off the dueling stage. Reggie watches her pass and feels a twinge of guilt. He went too far this time, and he realizes she isn't quite the troublemaker she used to be. After she steps down, the maids move to escort Tira back to her room, assuming she is too ashamed to linger after the loss, but Tira ignores them and walks straight toward me. She fights to hold back her tears, but the moment she stands before me, she can't hold them back any longer. She keeps apologizing. I'm sorry, it's all my fault. If I had just tried a little harder, maybe I could have won. I rise and try to console her. Losing isn't the end. Take what you learned today, and come back stronger. Tira hadn't expected me to comfort her instead of blame her, and she breaks down completely, sobbing uncontrollably, as if every hurt she has carried comes pouring out all at once. Just then, the Duchess hurries over. She reaches out and gently wipes the tears from the corner of Tira's eyes. My dear girl, you've been through so much. It's all right now. Let's get those wounds treated first. With her mother's comfort, Tira finally agrees to go and recover. I take that as my cue to leave, but the Duchess spins around, eyes blazing. You shameless nobody, just because you know a few spells you think you're something? How dare you corrupt my daughter? And then she slaps me across the face. Is this all you know how to teach? Dirty tricks and cheap tactics? Tira is the daughter of a duke. She should never stoop to something so low. Then she raises her hand and slaps me again. At that moment, she notices the Duke walking over. Darling, you saw it too, what this man did to our daughter. That duel was nothing like proper magical training. It had no noble bearing whatsoever. But before she can finish, the Duke's hand comes down across her own face. You fool! Do you still not understand how ignorant you are? The Duchess stands there, stunned. She cannot fathom why the Duke would humiliate her in public over a commoner. Yes, he is a man of low birth, but he is also our daughter's teacher. What kind of parent treats their child's teacher this way? The Duke then turns to me and offers a formal apology. Please forgive her ignorance. Every parent shows their love differently. She has simply always been too indulgent with Tira. There is something I'd like to discuss with you privately. Come with me to the study. As she watches us leave, the Duchess's gaze lingers long after we're gone. Her eyes are filled with cold hatred. As the Duchess, she has always been met with reverence wherever she goes. But today, because of this man, the Duke struck her in front of everyone. She vows quietly to make him pay. Meanwhile, the Duke is already thinking about how to reward me. You have done an exceptional job with my youngest daughter. As the head of this household, it's only right that I give you what you deserve. The highest privilege a commoner may be granted access to 3-star magic. He looks at me steadily. Would you like to learn 3-star magic? I can't help but feel a quiet admiration. This is a 5-star mage who stands at the very pinnacle of the world. He saw through my intentions in a single glance. After all, 3-star magic is the most fortified boundary between nobles and commoners. They hold a monopoly on 3-star spellbooks, making it nearly impossible for commoners to ever reach that level. I don't hesitate. I accept. Then the Duke shifts his tone. You've given Tira a foothold in magic, but that alone isn't enough for her to hold her own in noble society. There are many tutors in the kingdom who can guide her from here. Now that she has taken things seriously, she'll surely shine before long. But then the Duke says what he truly means. His daughter doesn't need a tutor. She needs a master. I know you are an ambitious man. Even so, I hope you will stay and teach Tira for as long as you can. Tira strides up to me with a triumphant grin. I'm not the same Tira I used to be. From now on, please address me as 1-star mage. I tell her that having cast a 1-star spell does technically make the title fitting. She pouts. You really can't just give me a proper compliment, can you? Your student has made incredible progress. Doesn't that make you even a little happy? I don't answer that directly. You seem to have recovered well these past 3 days. You were crying so hard, I thought you'd be miserable for a while longer. Turns out your resilience is something else. Tira flushes red and fires back. Who said I was crying? Some sand blew into my eyes, that's all. A few drops hardly counts. And why didn't Father tell me the truth sooner? I actually thought you'd been dismissed. I lost the duel that was supposed to decide whether you stayed. We resume our lessons. I tell her that at the rate she's improving, she'll pick up the rest of the 1-star spells in no time. Tira beams at the praise, her whole face lighting up, then leans forward eagerly. So what are we learning next? A mana sword doesn't even need a chant. And Rega's Windblade looked really powerful too. While she is rattling off every spell she wants to learn, I tell her what we're actually working on: mana diffusion. Tira deflates. She has already awakened her mana. Why practice diffusion instead of actual spells? I brace myself for an argument. But before I can say a word, Tira gives in on her own. A little reluctantly, but she agrees. Fine, whatever you say. I was all excited thinking we'd finally do real magic. What a waste. Then she catches me looking at her with a strange expression. Why are you staring at me like that? Do I have something on my face? I just find it hard to believe you're being this cooperative. Are you sure you didn't hit your head during that duel? Tira huffs and turns away. What do you take me for? I've listened to you from the very beginning. That gives me the perfect opening, and I start listing her offenses from when we first met. You dumped water on me twice, and you tried to make me kiss your feet. Tira squirms so hard she nearly trips over herself. Oh, lovely weather today, isn't it? Perfect day for mana diffusion practice. Watching her squirm like that, I feel a quiet warmth. She has come a long way from the girl I first met. We train until late into the night. Tira collapses on the ground, gasping, completely spent. The maids mentioned you're going to be pretty busy for a while? Yeah. Etiquette lessons start next week. Just thinking about it gives me a headache. I tell her that's actually a good sign. She's learned magic, and now she's getting a real noble education. It means the family hasn't given up on her. Tira doesn't quite see it that way. Noble etiquette alone covers dozens of disciplines, foreign languages, geography, piano, and more. How did Eileen ever get through all of it? She got through all of it, and that's exactly why she was called the flower of the kingdom. The heart of noble society. I then asked Tira, is anyone still trying to have me dismissed? She admits that while the Duke approves of me, the Duchess is not the type to let things go. I do understand why she feels that way. Learning from you pulls me further from everything noble. She's probably afraid I'll end up like you, a mercenary or something. Getting her to drop it won't be easy. I tell her it's actually simpler than she thinks. Just don't give her anything to complain about. Sometime later, the Duchess is still visibly agitated. My poor Tira, how did she end up with such a barbaric magic instructor? He's probably been teaching her mercenary tricks behind my back. The thought of Tira turning into some sort of brute makes her head throb. So what if he has some talent? What can a low-born commoner possibly teach my daughter? Just then, she runs into Tira in the hall. She opens her arms wide, expecting a warm embrace. No matter what anyone else says, in my eyes you will always be the most precious thing in the world. But Tira doesn't run into her arms. Instead, she gives a composed, graceful bow. The Duchess freezes. I apologize for not coming to greet you sooner while I was recovering. There is much I would love to say, but I have a piano lesson today. Please excuse me. Staring at her own little daughter so poised, so composed, the Duchess finds herself thinking of Eileen. At a tea party with several noble ladies, Eileen happens to bring up Derek. When I heard you had gone into the slums, I was terrified. I'm so glad you came back safely. Eileen explains that Tira needed a magic instructor, and she happened to find a remarkably gifted young man there. Alfie keeps a calm expression. But in Inwardly she is burning with curiosity. Just how capable is this boy from the slums? That Eileen herself went to recruit him as her sister's magic instructor? Dennis speaks up too. Hasn't Tira always been unable to use magic? Even renowned noble mages couldn't solve that problem. Can this young man really help her? Eileen smiles without reservation, making no effort to hide her admiration. Under his guidance, Tira can now cast one-star spells, and she came within a breath of beating Reggae. More than that, she is no longer the wild, unruly girl she was. She has become a proper, refined lady. Honestly, even I feel the pressure. Dennis offers her congratulations, but is already scheming inwardly to learn more about this young man. House Duplan had long avoided the subject of Tira because of how badly she had behaved, and now here was Eileen, singing his praises without end. Eileen, completely unaware of either woman's thoughts, casually lets slip the rest. He comes from nothing, but his ability is extraordinary. He's also a mercenary from the Belton region. His real-world combat skills are frankly astonishing. Both women are caught off guard. In the eyes of most nobles, a mercenary means violence and roughness. But Alfie reconsiders. If this man turned the infamous Tira into a well-mannered noble lady and taught her magic on top of that mercenary or not, he is worth meeting. She asks for his name. Eileen wonders, a little curiously, why she wants to know. Alfie explains that if he is Tira's teacher, he will surely become well known one day. She simply wants to know the name ahead of time. That satisfies Eileen, and she answers without hesitation. His name is Derek, a white-haired young man who looks every bit the noble. Meanwhile, Tira is gushing to the Duchess about me, how I taught her magic, and how I even know a great deal about noble etiquette. The Duchess refuses to give me any credit. Tira, the fact that you learned all this on your own is truly admirable. Mother, I didn't learn it on my own. Most of it was very hard, but Derek made it possible. Listening to her daughter praise this man over and over, the Duchess, who has always looked down on commoners, feels her irritation rise. The moment she steps out of Tira's room, the composure slips. What has that man done to my Tira? Why is his name constantly on her lips? She decides she can no longer sit back, or her daughter may truly be led astray. So she sets out to question the servants, hoping to uncover some flaw in Tira, something she can pin on me as a failure of teaching. But what she hears stuns her. Every single servant says the same thing. Lady Tira's transformation is remarkable. In just a few months, she has become a completely different person, a true noble lady, through and through. Getting none of what she wanted, the Duchess is left seething. I, meanwhile, am completely absorbed in channeling my mana, studying the art of magic. Beside me sits the 3-star spellbook I borrowed from the archive. Spellbooks of this tier are tightly controlled by the nobility. Countless talented commoners have spent their entire lives unable to break through to 3-star mage. It was Tira's outstanding progress that moved the Duke to reward me with access to it. Then I sense someone approaching from behind. I turn and find it is Regé. Sorry to interrupt your practice. I ask him directly whether there's something he came to say. Regé sits down beside me and says he wants to talk about Tira. Then his eyes land on the spellbook in my hands and he realizes it's 3-star. When I tell him his father lent it to me, Regé looks almost speechless. A quiet admiration stirs in him. Clearly Derek's talent and strength far surpass his own. I ask him directly, so what did you want to say about Tira? Reg shifts uncomfortably. He hems and haws for a while before finally asking, what kinds of things do girls like these days? I'm caught off guard. The composed, dignified Regé is the last person I'd expect to look like this. He continues, almost dreamily, if I sew a stuffed doll that looks just like Tira, do you think she'd like it? The moment he says it, the image of one of Varian's stuffed dolls surfaces in my mind. My answer is immediate. She definitely would not. Reg lets out a string of awkward laughs. Clearly embarrassed, we stand and head back toward the manor. Along the way, Reg suddenly speaks up. Regardless of everything, I am truly grateful to you. The old Tira had disappointed me completely. You brought back the girl I remembered, kind, earnest, worth caring about. And father too, he's very pleased. Even if someone in his position won't show it easily. Then Regis stops walking and looks up at the night sky. I failed her as an older brother. I was so focused on driving her out of the family. Now that she's changed, I think it's time I change too. He thanks me again, sincerely. I give him a quiet nod. Then Reg adds, by the way, Tira's magic feels unusual to me. It doesn't feel like traditional spell casting. It's more like a new kind of magic, closer to painting. I'm genuinely surprised. True to House Duplan's bloodline, I had assumed such a subtle difference would be impossible for most people to detect. Yet he had noticed. So I tell him plainly, everyone channels mana differently, but broadly, there are two paths, the wild path and the order path. The vast majority of mages follow the order path. Tira belongs to the wild path, which is exceedingly rare. Once she reaches a certain turning point, she'll be able to advance on her own. She won't need me to teach her anymore. By then, outside guidance would only hold her back. Sometime later, Tira finds a fresh bouquet of flowers on her desk. They were blooming so beautifully. I thought they'd brighten your room, my lady. Tira leans in and takes a quiet breath. The fragrance is unlike anything she knows. She decides to bring them to me later. At the thought, a smile creeps onto her face without her realizing it. The maid nearby teases her. No wonder you look so happy today, my lady. Derek's magic lesson must be soon. Tira heads to my room with the flowers, full of excitement, and walks right into a piece of news that hits like a bolt from the blue. Tears well up in her eyes. She can't believe what she's hearing. Standing in the room are Derek and Varian. Tira, you heard right. There's nothing more I can teach you. I'm leaving. With Tira's magical training firmly on track, I go to the Duke and formally resign. The Duke goes quiet for a long moment. He rises slowly and walks to the window. Thanks to you, my daughter has returned to the girl she used to be, kind and earnest, worth being proud of. All these years I gave everything to managing my domain, but I failed as a father. If not for you, I would have carried that guilt for the rest of my life. He asks when I plan to leave. I tell him Eileen will be arriving at the manor soon, and that I plan to ride back to Abestein in her carriage. The Duke says, in that case, return the library key. I tell him I will return the 3-star spellbook immediately, and hand the key to the head steward. But the Duke tells me that won't be necessary. Just return the key, that's all. I glance at the 3-star spellbook at my side. I hadn't expected the Duke to gift something this precious on my way out. I bow to him with the utmost respect. This family is nothing like the nobles I remember. They are great nobles in the truest sense, people of genuine character. As I step out of the Duke's study, Tira is waiting there for me. Her voice carries both resentment and something harder to name. You always do this, show up without warning, then disappear the same way. Then she fidgets and forces the words out anyway. Can't you really stay? I see the reluctance in her eyes, and I'm silent for a long moment. Then I step toward her and lower my head slightly. This isn't goodbye forever. I'll go back to the life of a mercenary, and you'll keep growing. When you've come into your own, I'll be waiting to see your debut in Abestein. Tira says nothing. She looks like she might cry at any moment. And when we meet again, if I've grown a little stronger by then, maybe I'll even have something new to teach you. After a pause, Tira says quietly, you're so annoying. Everything you say makes perfect sense. I can never argue with you. That night, Tira sleeps with a look of pain on her face. In her dream, she is back in the time before I arrived. Back then, she was the laughingstock of the noble world. Everyone said she was nothing but a bloodline, that someone like her should never have been born. She was a disgrace to House Dupland. She jolts awake. What's going on? I haven't had nightmares like that in a long time. Is it because Derek is leaving that I feel this way? The maid, hearing the commotion, comes rushing in, and suddenly, a wild thought takes hold of Tira. If she went back to being the arrogant, impossible, noble lady she used to be, would that be enough to make him stay? She could slap the maid, for instance. But in the end, she only smiles and greets the maid warmly. She doesn't want to go back to who she was. Derek would be disappointed. The next morning, I prepare to leave in Eileen's carriage. Tira and both her brothers come to see me off. She stands to the side, arms crossed, wearing a look of forced indignation. Regé and Varian both tell me sincerely, if I ever run into trouble, reach out to them. They will do everything they can. I thank them for their kindness. Then I turn my gaze to Tira, who hasn't said a word this whole time. She looks back at me in silence. The two of us stand like that for a long moment, until Tira finally breaks. Why are you looking at me like that? Did you think I'd cry and beg you not to go? I'm not a crybaby little kid anymore. The corner of my mouth lifts. It has been my honor to teach you. I may not be someone who can proudly boast about being your teacher, but I hope you'll carry with you everything we learned together. Tira laughs at that. Well, if you won't say it, then I will everywhere I go. You'll never have a quiet life again, because you are the teacher of the great mage, Tira Duplan. But I don't argue. I just smile and look at her. For a moment, she almost loses the battle against her tears. She quickly turns her head away. Before we meet again, take care of yourself. Don't do anything reckless. I remind her to rest as well, not to push herself too hard. Tira lifts her chin with great dignity. I'm an adult, not a child. I can take perfectly good care of myself. Those familiar words stop me. I had said the exact same thing once, and back then, my teacher had pulled me into a firm embrace. So I leaned down and gently rest my hand on her hair. You don't have to pretend to be strong. At that, Tira finally gives in, tears brimming at the edges of her eyes. Then she quickly wipes them away, and turns to wave goodbye with the brightest smile she can manage. I return the gesture. Until next time, we'll meet again in Abestein. Tira's face is wet with tears, but her smile is radiant. She calls back one clear word. Deal. When I return to the tavern where mercenaries take their contracts, the place is just as chaotic as ever. Perrin, in the middle of beating someone up, spots me and breaks into a grin. Derek, you're finally back. I pull off my hat slowly. Yeah, I'm back. For someone who grew up in the slums, this place is the only home I've ever known. Perrin sizes me up with a look that mixes envy, irritation, and something close to admiration. So you were a noble's magic instructor. How come you came back looking as pale as one of them? I tell her calmly that I was simply doing a job, nothing more worth mentioning. That only makes her more annoyed. Look at you, even the way you talk has gone noble on me. I really want to punch you in the face right now. The tavern boss calls out from the side. Settle down, Perrin. You can beat him and you know it. Don't embarrass yourself. I'm just mad. We used to take jobs together, and while he was gone, I had to do everything on my own. Do you have any idea how hard that was? The boss takes that as a cue to change the subject and asks how the job paid off. I tell him the real reward wasn't money, it was something worth far more, and I set the 3-star spellbook the Duke gave me down on the table. They both assume it's a 2-star spellbook at first, and even then, their eyes go wide. Something like this can't be bought with money. It's not 2-star, it's 3. They completely lose it. Did you steal this from some Duke's vault? If the nobles find out, you're a dead man. Perrin's eyes light up as she demands to know where I stole it from. She wants to go steal one too. I watch their dramatic reactions in silence for a moment, then say simply, the Duke gave it to me. Don't you lie to me. Tell me the truth. Does the Duke's family need an archery instructor? Because I'm going in to steal one for myself. It doesn't quiet down until Perrin drinks herself to sleep. I ask the boss urgently whether there are any contracts available. These past months, living comfortably while teaching Tira have been pleasant, but I can feel my edge going soft. The boss tells me to relax. This line of work always needs mages, especially strong ones. The next day, Perrin and I head out together on a contract. Along the way, Perrin is constantly scrambling in a panic to dodge the magical beasts charging at her, but the two of us have worked together long enough we take them down without too much trouble. In the weeks that follow, we take one beast hunting contract after another. Even during rest hours, I never allow myself to slack off. Every spare moment goes into studying my mana and pushing deeper into the spellbook. With the 3-star spellbook in hand, I can now sense with perfect clarity the wall that stands between 2-star and 3-star. And yet breaking through it is another matter entirely. 3-star mages are considered powerful by any measure across the entire continent. All I can do now is keep refining, keep grinding, and hope to break through as soon as I can. Sometime later, Perrin and I finish a contract and make our way back to the tavern. The boss takes one look at us and shakes his head with a grin. Youth, what a thing. You two actually went to the Kente Mountains in weather like this and hunted down a harpy on top of it. He hands us each a hot towel. We wipe the blood from our faces, and the warmth of the towel seeps and it feels like coming back to life. By the way, Derek, you've been working hard. There's a lighter job that just came in. Something to give you a breather. The pay is generous too. The process, though, might be a little complicated. It turns out the contract was posted by House Burmia. Their young lady is looking for a commoner to spar with in magic combat, which, plainly put, means someone to take the hits. On the other side of the city, Aelint has just been told by her teacher that her next sparring partner will be a commoner. She looks at her teacher with open disdain, asking why a commoner was chosen as her opponent. In her eyes, no commoner's ability or talent can compare to a noble's. It wouldn't be a sparring match. It would be a one-sided beating. Don't be resistant, Aelint. This is part of your training. We've promised the commoner generous compensation. Feel free to use your magic without holding back. So my training is to go beat up a commoner? How perfectly noble of us. Though I'm about to break through to 2-star. Can a commoner actually withstand that? Meanwhile, I'm on the other side of the city, preparing for the upcoming match, when a haughty young noble lady appears before me. You're my opponent today? I rise and give a polite bow. Yes, Miss Aelint. I'm your sparring partner today. My name is Derek. At the sound of my name, something stirs in her. The name feels oddly familiar, as if she has heard it somewhere before. And is this person really a mage? He looks younger than she is. We step onto the dueling stage. Aelint doesn't see me as a threat at all. In her mind, all she has to do is show a fraction of her power, and this commoner will be crushed. At the same time, she's conflicted. Going too easy won't meet the requirements of the training, but going all out feels excessive. Then I speak up. How much strength should I use to withstand your attacks? Aelint stares at me, genuinely thrown. What kind of absurd question is that? I need to know how much resistance to offer so I can actually be useful to you. Aelint's teacher can only shake his head. Of all the people to pick as a sparring partner, it had to be this one. Aelint lets out a short laugh. You're funny. You talk as if you could actually withstand my full power. Fine, then resist with everything you have, because I'm going to teach you a lesson, you arrogant little commoner. Pure mana gathers in my hand. I look at her calmly. Then I'll give you exactly what you asked for.